Differentiation is something that I've always been really taught by a mentor of mine, CEO of my last company, that even in the most commoditized markets, and we've got a lot of commoditized markets that we represent, mine is as well, if you have distinct points of differentiation, you can win. And we're going to walk through that. So if you're going into 2022 and you're trying to figure out how to scale up your business, let's talk about some of those things first. You can always increase how many customers you're serving, you can increase how much they're spending with you, you can franchise, you can license, there's all sorts of ways to scale up. But what I want to do is kind of take it back to the differentiation component. As we're going into 2022, this is when a lot of people spend time evaluating your businesses. It's something that we've been doing this whole quarter at Diffactory. We're doing it at the Smoothie Shop right now, and these are some of the tools that we use to go out and carve out competitive differentiation, and more importantly, market share. So let's dive right in. A lot of people don't know that our company has the word differentiation in the name. Did anybody know that? Probably nobody, right? So it's a funny story, and luckily I'm married to somebody who's really, really smart. I'll share my kind of founder story with you. But it's a combination of the words differentiation and factory, Diffactory. And when I knew I was going to start a company in early 2015, I did what all eager entrepreneurs do. I go do all the stuff that you have to do. You go get a bank account, you form an LLC, you go get your first business cards off Vistaprint, all of those things. And so I formed the LLC as Diffactory, but it was never supposed to be the name of the company that you guys know in our community. So late one night, about 3 months before I was going to leave my cushy corporate job, I'm running by all these business names in front of my wife. We're laying in bed and I'm like, what about MarketTune and all these things? And they were all terrible, right? And she looked at me and she said, Oldham, you've got 2 young babies at home. You're getting ready to go quit a great job and start a company in a basement with no clients. Don't you think you have something better to do than determine what to name your company? Why don't you call it Diffactory, get off your keister, and get to work on the other stuff that you need to get to work on? And I'm like, done. So that's how Diffactory was born. So yeah, this is us. We're the differentiation factory. A lot of people come to us and they've got an idea, or maybe they have a business, and one of the first things we ask is why you? Why should anybody care? I know that sounds bad, but you're going into a market where people are bombarded with messages. We're just overloaded. Advertising, just information overload. So what are the things that are going to make you different in the marketplace? And to bring an example to Diffactory, in our company video, I say, did I feel like the world needed another marketing company? Absolutely not. But they need one that did things on time, on or under budget, and exceeded expectations? Absolutely. And that's not the norm in the digital marketing space. So that was kind of our point of differentiation when we launched the company. It was just going to be to treat people really, really well. So as you go into 2022, think about, figure out 5 different things. I'm going to give you a framework here. I'm going to give you ideas on how you can get those points of differentiation in your business. But one of the things I want to bring attention to is we are still in a bull market. Okay? Money is flowing. Yep, we've got inflation, and that's a problem, but we still have real estate that's going for above list price. We have supply chain issues. We have all these things, and the market is continuing to do this. Really, basically since 2012. Do we have any financial advisors in here who actually watch the market? We got bankers, right? In the aggregate, things have continued to go up. It will correct. It absolutely will correct at some point. And I firmly believe that those companies that have a very, very deep value proposition on why the heck they exist, why they do what they do, how they do it, are going to be the ones that end up prospering when the market corrects, because there's always winners and there's always losers. And I want you guys to all be winners. I want our community to be full of companies that actually win. Yes, sir.
I want to say something about that. I made it through 2008.
Yep.
Because I was a different situation. And so I agree with what you're saying.
Yep. And I'm going to show you a case study from 2009. I was running marketing for a real estate company when the real estate market imploded. And I'm going to show you one of the case studies on how we differentiated and how we carried the torch of a 90-year-old business and didn't crash and burn. It was very, very scary. And differentiation was a big component of that. So how do we make it so that basically we're I don't want to say eliminating the competition, but trying to as much as possible. And I always think that Tesla is a pretty good example. You know, you've got the first mover advantage. So Elon Musk was great in the fact that he figured out how to make this exact car, the Model, what's it called? I'm not a Tesla guy. The Model S, I think it is. The affordable, you know, or Model 3. The Model 3 is the affordable one. So this was our first mass market electric vehicle, right? And what was the point of differentiation here? The biggest thing was it was electric vehicle and it was available to more people. I'm not going to say everybody, it's still expensive as heck. But Elon Musk used differentiation as a way to go build, I think, what is still one of the world's largest companies, and that's happened within the past 10 years. This is another example. This is a friend of mine, a gentleman by the name of Scott Wesley. Scott used to work at Mariner Wealth Advisors, and now he has his own wealth advisory company. He figured out something. He figured out that a lot of his clients were guys who were senior executives at Kansas City companies, and they didn't really have a social life. But they wanted to connect with like their inner manhood. They wanted to go out and hunt, you know, go out and do kayaking trips, go do bucket list trips, and all these things. This is the most expensive lead generation device I've ever seen in my entire life. So I belong to this club. I didn't pay. It was a very nice thing because he's a good friend of mine. I'm not a member anymore. But Arrived Outdoors is one of the biggest points of differentiation I've ever seen anyone take. This guy was in the financial planning space. Highly, highly commoditized. There's a lot of people, it's based on one thing, relationships. They know you, like you, trust you. And Scott realized that his core demographic, the best way to get to know, like, and trust this farm boy from Iowa was to go on a bucket list trip that you probably never ever thought that you would do, and to create a private club where these guys could get together and congregate, right? And so this is like the biggest, I love this picture of the clubhouse over in Overland Park because it is extreme differentiation, somebody thinking differently, an employee at a big company saying, you know what, my book of business, I really want to own this thing. What's the best way to do that? And he went out and he built a private club. So now and you're going to see that creating your own tribe is one of the ways that you can create a point of differentiation. By creating a tribe and being kind of the tribal leader, people are going to follow you. They're going to get to know you, like you, trust you, and guess what? They're going to do more business with you. Okay? So that's always a really, really cool example to show. So there's really 4 different ways that we can differentiate. Okay? And I'll post these or send them to anybody, so you don't have to take notes if you don't want to. But here's 4 distinct ways. Number 1 is community. So when you think about community, think about the image I just showed you of Arrived Outdoors. That's probably the most extreme version of community building I have seen in real life. Read about it sometimes in magazines, but that's somebody actually doing it here in our backyard. Community doesn't have to be this complicated thing. It could be something as simple as a Facebook group. So you don't have to go build a private club. You can just like hit a button and have community. Ecosystem is another thing we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about brand, and we're going to talk about intellectual property, IP. Okay? The goal of all these things is that if you're going into, let's use garage doors as an example. Okay? So let's say somebody's calling you and who's your number 1 competitor?
Yeah. Overhead door.
Overhead door, great. What do you think is unique about you guys versus overhead door? 1 point of differentiation.
The care that we give to our people.
Care, right? Overhead door maybe doesn't give as much care. Okay? So all things being equal, if both of these garage door companies come to my home to solve a problem for us, and they happen to be at my house today solving a problem for me right now, but all things being equal, let's say I go online, they all have 5-star reviews, they all have about 100 of them, like everything's looking equal, and maybe it's a big project. I don't know, building a garage or something, right? Something where you'd actually assess a couple of competitors against each other. All things being equal, and you got this one other facet that makes you different. Maybe you got 2 or 3 other things. It's enough to say, okay, I don't know which one to pick. I'm going to pick the one that has more unique things that resonate with me as a customer. The care that they provide to their customers, the service level, they answer the phone. all of those things. So those things have to do with brand really and how you carry yourself. But the whole thing that we want to do is we want to stack up the odds for everybody here in your favor so that it's not even fair. You're not even competing, and hopefully you'll be able to get some of those points of differentiation. So community is a big thing. Community, if you think about it, if you decide that you're going to go, let's just use an elementary example, you're going to go start a private Facebook group. Maybe you're going to, invite me some business owners into it. And by the way, that's something that I'm thinking about doing in 2022 as part of our marketing plan. To be a central resource where we can share information that helps people, okay? So who here belongs to like some sort of a club of some sort, like where there's a leader of said club? It could be a mastermind group, it could be a networking group, it could be all these things. You think about who the person or the company is that put that together. They have instant credibility. You also have access to them. It's not like they're hiding, like you are the community leader. Your company is a community leader, okay? We did a little experiment in community building back in 2017. We started a very, very small group called Diffactory Direct. We had about 25 members in it. And it was a combination of in-person teaching, some web resources, and all sorts of other things. And what we didn't expect that was going to happen out of that was we didn't make money on like the little memberships that we were selling for it. What ended up happening was we started selling a bunch of stuff to the people who were in the community. And it literally closed, it's a $30,000 annual contract with an entrepreneur in St. Louis 2 months ago who was part of that tribe back in 2017. I haven't talked to her in 4 years. She sees me on Facebook and that's about it. And she needed help. And she remembered how we led the community, the information that we shared. She already knew me, even though we never met face to face, and she trusted me. And she's like, I trust you, please let's do business together. The sales process did not exist because of community building. So that's a pretty basic example. The challenging part with community, if you find, hey, this is something I want to do, the hard part is you got to have the energy to lead the community. Because it's like crickets at the beginning. Not everybody flocks to the community that you create, whether it's a virtual community or whether it's something that's in real life. I think about Referral Madness. Okay, that's a community. And I think there's people probably here that belong to that organization. They have, they started small, right? And then they started having other chapters, I think, throughout Kansas City. I don't even know, maybe they'd expanded outside of Kansas City. But that was something that, Tony Olson took on his heart and had to work at to build like that first chapter. And probably a lot of conversations, a lot of convincing, getting people to buy in, and then it kind of starts to steamroll a little bit and snowball. And you're not having to drag the community along as much. It starts kind of pushing itself. The members start interacting with each other. And they're like, wow, I'm really glad that Tina put us all together as garage door owners. I know it's a silly example. But hey, I'm really glad that this is here. When things break, who am I going to call, right? So that's the opportunity with community, but it is work, okay? And this is where I kind of point out, it's like, hey, it's very difficult to build community. It's the whole chicken or egg thing. You decide you want to create a Facebook group, and guess what? Nobody shows up, or people show up, and then they bounce, and you have to kind of push it. You have to make a commitment. The other thing is, like, sometimes it's hard to get new people engaged in community. I've belonged to various communities professionally in my life that Lisa Chambers community. This is a community. We are all members. My first 6 months, we did not lean into this. Luckily, Carson became my ambassador. Is that what it was called? Mentor? Whatever. I just remember the long-haired guy. So. But Carson came to our office and somehow, he basically showed up, and he's like, hey, dude, let me drag you to one thing. Let me drag you to one ribbon cutting. He took me to a dental ribbon cutting. I met Barrett Evans there. I met a couple stellar people, broke the ice. I leaned in. I was all in on the community, and now you guys are going to have to kick me out, right? So that's the challenge, and you generally have to deliver value, and even if you're delivering value, sometimes you have to lead the people to the value before they see, oh wow, this is like my tribe. Like, this is cool. This is where I belong. This is where I'm going to do business. This is how I'm going to grow my business. So that's kind of the challenge with community building. But it's not the hardest one, believe it or not. Ecosystem. So ecosystems are kind of unique. I was trying to figure out kind of a unique opportunity as it relates to local businesses. Because you see, like, all these guys are basically places that you go. So think about eBay or Amazon, Etsy, your app stores. They're a place that you go, and then there's other people's stuff on there, right? So, and in some cases, like Amazon sells their own stuff, but there's the marketplace on Amazon. So what that looks like is you're basically you're still the procuring cost. So let's use Apple as the example. So Apple says, hey, we're going to build an app store. And we're going to have some of our own apps in there, but we're going to let other people sell stuff in there as well. And yeah, it's monetarily good for us, but it also builds extreme points of differentiation. When they dropped the App Store, guys, actually when they dropped the iTunes Store, that was earth-shaking. Don't underestimate what the power of creating kind of an ecosystem is, because as soon as Steve Jobs had the insights to build the iPod, and we had to manually load songs onto it, and they unleashed the iTunes Store, all of a sudden that propelled us to having all these apps and things on our phones. And it all ties back to Apple, and that's why Apple is one of the most valuable companies on the planet, because they have this ecosystem that they own, that they control. They are the gatekeepers. This one's a little bit harder for us smaller business owners, because these types of things are expensive. It's expensive to build an ecosystem. I'm scratching my head trying to figure out a good one. So I give this talk to a lot of startups as well, like technology startups. So this is a little bit more on the technology startup play. Brand is everybody though. I've seen two really good examples of brands since I've been standing in this room. Jeremy's the sponsor and he's wearing a packed t-shirt. That's brand marketing. Time to impact. Could be, you may have an immediate need and be his ideal customer, or you might meet him in 2 years and you might remember him talking up here. That's brand marketing, okay? Go ahead and introduce yourself, Tina, again.
I'm Tina Woo Woo Walker.
That's brand, okay? It's a point of differentiation. We all hear her say that at every ribbon cut. Whether you enjoy hearing her say it or not, I don't care.
And I don't either.
I don't care, because guess what? She's sticking out. She's taking her freaking name and differentiating it, okay? So think about that. Differentiation doesn't have to be, hey, I'm going to go build this Taj Mahal, and Kevin's talking about all these billionaires that doesn't apply to me. No, we can take it down to this very elementary level. I mean, a lot of people remember me because I have a jacked up last name. It's Oldham, but it's spelled like old ham. And so my wife gets mortified when we go to restaurants. I'll go, it's Oldham, O-L-D-H-A-M, like old ham. She got used to it. But it's one of those things that if I said that to everybody all the time, it would stick. I just don't want that to be my thing. So like my last name. So brand is, when we're walking people through what brand means, particularly from I look at everything from a marketing perspective. I'm sorry, it's just how I operate, right? It's the way my brain operates. Your brand is everything that you do and say. The promises that you fulfill. The promise that you're making to your target audience. And this is why companies that are really, really big have these brand promises, and we'll walk through them, that really resonate with us. We know that when we get on Southwest Airlines, we're gonna have to stand in a line. For a lot of people, that's pretty cool. If you're an A-lister like myself, you really don't care. And you're gonna stand there, and then you're gonna be turned around really quickly. The flight attendants are gonna joke a little bit. You're gonna have this predictable experience. Done. Done. That's it. That's our brand promise. We're cheap, and we're reliable, and we're fast. We're gonna have a lot of departures. So your brand is something that, as you think about it, it's even harder. Like, I actually think the brand of Diffactory isn't that strong. Like, unfortunately, a lot of people just like to do business with me. I am Diffactory. Like, a lot of people think that, right? And it's hard as small business owners to try to get people to focus on your brand when they're used to doing business with a person. People like to do business with people, not companies. right? And you probably even see this. You might go sell a job and then try to pass them off, Jeremy, to somebody else, and then they'll still call you because they know, like, and trust you. So when we think about brand, think about your company brand, but also think about the brand of you as a human. What is it you stand for? You know, all these things are super, super important. And can be very, very mind-blowing if you start to think about it. Intellectual property. This is always a fun one. It sounds legal, but really we're talking about stuff that you have that other people don't have. That's really it. And these are big legal words, but you don't have to go to Chris to do this type of stuff. Sometimes you can just have, you know, a proprietary framework. So let me give you an example. At Diffactory, we have quite a few different processes and systems set up that allow us to be a small company while serving a larger amount of people. And a lot of times we have frameworks that we use that we have become known for. We have private labeled a customer relationship management platform called Rocket Hub. That is now our intellectual property. It is a point of differentiation that you cannot get anywhere else besides our company. You might be able to go get that software somewhere else, but we've done our own things to it to get it to behave the way we want it to, so when we put it into customers' hands, it does cool things for them. Point of differentiation. Literally was talking to a nonprofit earlier this week, and they were talking about the marketing company they've been with for a long time, and they're talking about where all their leads go. And they're like, they just go into our email. We need like a system. We need a place to put them so we can do something with them. And I'm like, cool, I've got you. I got your back. I've got this. Everybody gets it. Here you go. And she's like, oh my gosh, you're going to give me a free CRM and push all my leads into it? Great. Slam dunk. It was that point of differentiation that hit a pain point that we didn't even know she had until she started to open up to what some of her problems were that she was exhibiting. And so the more things that you have, it's almost like you got this tool belt of differentiators. And the more of them that you have, when you come into those cases where somebody's got a pain point and you got something unique that can solve it, it could be intellectual property, it could be your brand promise, it could be community aspect. It doesn't matter, but as many of those tools as you can go out and throw on there and say, hey, here's me, here's how we operate, stacks the cards into your favor, okay? And if you get enough of those, like one of these case studies I'm going to show you, it makes it so that it is just unfair. The whole goal here is I want you to think that you're a king or a queen and you've got a castle. Castle's your business, okay? You got to defend it with your life. And I think most of us have probably done that over the past 2 years as we've defended it with our lives. But maintaining is just not good enough. Like, how can you build a defensible market position such that competition starts to become a little bit less relevant? You can play a different game than everybody's playing. You can build up all those differentiators and just stack the cards up so it's like different, 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 different. Okay, cool. Who do you want to work with? This guy or this guy who has all these other things that they can offer you? It's big, big, big stuff. The biggest companies are using it. So I'm going to walk you through a really cool case study. The company that I spent 8 years at was called United Real Estate Group. We owned a 90-year-old brand that was the largest franchisor of rural real estate offices. We had like 600 locations throughout the United States. We launched United Real Estate in 2010, which was like a competitor to like Remax and major metropolitan models. We had an auction franchise and we had a marketing company. And every year we would go to our national convention and the #1 office and the #1 agent would get up on stage out of thousands of agents and hundreds of offices. And it was always the same guys. They were in Macomb, Mississippi. Who's heard of Macomb, Mississippi? Exactly. You've heard of it? I've actually been there. So Macomb, Mississippi. And then, why am I blanking on Scott's last name? Doesn't matter. Scott was always our #1 sales rep, and he was in that office. And you're like, what are these guys in Macomb, Mississippi doing selling hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate every year? And so we decided to bring Scott to the home office and say, hey, dude, wait, what are you doing? Scott Lindsay, that's his name, Scott Lindsay. And the interesting thing about Scott and his story, this story dramatically changed our differentiation strategy at this company going forward. And it's stuck in my head so much that I love sharing this case study. So Scott was just a good old country boy, and he was a registered forester. Well, when somebody's selling land that has timber on it, they'll do an evaluation. It's called timber cruise. And he's like, man, guys, and he's got this southern drawl. I can still see him sitting in the office. He's like, you know, one of these days I went to a closing and I looked at the settlement statement and I saw how much the real estate agent was making on this deal, and then I saw how much I was getting paid to assess the timber, and I'm like, I want to be that guy, not this low number that I'm getting as a professional service provider. So I got my real estate license, and then I started helping people sell timber. Turns out it ended up being a big deal. And we're like, how can we reverse engineer that? How can we go create 50 Scots throughout the United States? So that's what we did. As soon as we realized that this was, historically, this business before new management team that I was part of took over, used to market, I kind of use the standard industry classification codes. So every industry has numbers and they get longer and longer the more that you kind of niche down. So they were operating at the rural real estate level for like 80 years. We brought some new thinking in, and we brought Scott in, and we're like, oh my gosh, not only rural real estate, then land, and then land with timber on it. So now all of a sudden our standard industry classification code is notched out a little bit, and we've gone deep into this market. And what we realized, and I used all of these things, so tying it back, community, okay? We, instead of creating our own community, we figured out what the communities were that already existed. There were timber investment management organizations, TIMOs, real estate investment trusts. There were groups of foresters. There were agents. There were buyers and sellers of this stuff. Like, there's all of these people that are interested in this sub-niche of rural real estate. So then we looked at the ecosystem. We're like, oh my gosh, there's conferences of these people. If we want to go find 50 more Scots, they belong to associations. The one that we found was the Society of American Foresters. Intellectual property. We didn't have any, so we built it. We hired a PhD in timber, which I didn't even know was a thing, to write a 50-page primer on investing in timber real estate. We bought and built investintimber.com. We had white papers. We had presentations. We had, on the back end of our intranet, all of these marketing materials that were all about timber. And we're like, okay, agents, now you know how to go talk about timber. And we had a specialty property group practice leader, and that ended up being Scott. Our brand was already established. We were a 90-year-old brand, largest in rural real estate. And the moat was the value that we were stacking up. We were able to go in and secure meetings with Plum Creek, I forget the other one, but these big timber companies, because we had this insight, and we're like, well, that's cool. We were curious, and then we acted on it. We went out and we secured the resources. It wasn't that expensive, minus having a guy write the 50-page paper. That was like the most expensive part. Everything else was just work. And then we went and did it in 24 other markets. We did it in farm, we did it in coastal, we did it in mountain properties, and we just went, we did it in survival properties. That was cool. Bug out joints. That's fun. Yeah.
Talk about moat.
Yep.
Talk about what you mean by value.
We were delivering so much value to a timber buyer or seller that if, let's say one of our agents was going on a listing presentation and they didn't know anything about timber, and these people have 10,000 acres. There's a bunch of trees on them. And they know those trees are worth something to somebody. They enhance the value of the land. So that agent knew that they had a team, and if they got, they're bird dogging and they're going after deals, and these are big deals, right? 10,000 acres, great. I'm just the guy in some other small town. I need help. Call the home office. Hey, I need timber resources. Great, let's get Scott on the phone. Cool, Scott's going to help you on the listing presentation. Let's go into our intranet and pull down the listing presentation. Let's go ahead and give them the white paper. Let's let them know that we have these relationships with all these people who are buying timber in mass, publicly traded companies. Boom, boom, boom. And then when we go to that listing presentation and we're interviewing against the little independent guy who's like, hey, I'm here to help you with your land. And then we come in and we're like, yeah, we got PhDs and really smart people that can help us get them maximum value. We're delivering all this value to that seller, and we would not lose opportunities because we stack the decks up so much.
So that's playing your own game.
Yeah, yeah. We just value, differentiator. It was a heck of a lot of fun. So yeah, we made it basically unfair. We became very quickly the largest timber seller in the United States from a real estate brokerage perspective. So it was a lot of fun. So let's talk about how you can play this up in marketing and some very specific things that you guys can do that don't take money. Okay? So this is a good time to evaluate your pricing strategy. End of the year, everybody's doing budgeting and all those things. Look at your pricing strategy. Look at your quality, delivery. Like, what are you doing in the delivery process, in the pricing process to make it so that you're different? I'll give you another example. This is a Diffactory example. Websites are kind of expensive. Well, they can be cheap or they can be expensive. We're middle of the road in terms of our pricing model. I wanted to make it easy to do business with Diffactory back in 2018. I also wanted to create some stability in our business. So I wanted to create a line of recurring revenue in our business. What we did was still nobody else in Kansas City is doing this, it's very unusual, but we took what is typically a big capital expenditure. We started financing it in-house for 24 months. We're like, hey, your website, like if you want to pay for it now, 50% now, 50% when it's done, awesome. Otherwise, we offer a 24-month plan where you can get unlimited changes to your site. You don't ever have to worry about anything. It's going to be up and running. I'm going to wake you up, Cinda. Come on, do this. Come on, Cinda. All right. You can do it. But that's like the name of the game. And as soon as we did that, it was just incredible. We were able to stack up client, because it made it easier for people to say yes to us. Plus, they knew that we were in their back pocket if they ever needed us for 2 years. We weren't going to ghost them, which is very, very typical in my industry. I hate to say it, but a lot of marketers are flaky. So we did two things. We tilted the economics and we put them in the customer's pocket. Said, hey, you can just spread this out, budget for it, you're not going to have lumpy capital expenditure, and furthermore, we're on your team for 2 years. We're not going anywhere. Jeremy finished his 2-year term, and now he's like on this maintenance contract, and we hear from his wife, not as much as we'd like to, but saying, hey, I want to update this. So it provides them a better experience, it provides us with recurring revenue. It just ends up being a win, and it makes it very, very easy for us to be different than the other guys. So, cool stuff. And that's an example of pricing strategy. Technology, I say, Jeremy, I said it doesn't have to be a huge endeavor like Uber. Jeremy's building an app right now that's taking a little bit longer than he thought. We were talking about that before we came in. But you can use technology as a way to differentiate your business as well. And I'm not talking about going out and building technology. I'm talking about using stuff that's available today. Perfect example. We bought some new appliances not too long ago from Ferguson Appliances. They text me with a little link. Click on the link, I can see where the driver is. That makes me feel good. I know when the driver is going to be here to put my new range in my house. So like if I've got to go run an errand, I know he's at stop number 1, at stop number 4, see a dot, like cool. I can go do my stuff and come back to the house. Like I'm not just sitting there waiting. That ends up becoming one of those remarkable things where they didn't build the technology, they just found somebody who had it that eased friction for their customers, and now here I am sneezing that message about how the delivery process set expectations for the customer appropriately. They weren't wondering, yeah, still got a 4-hour gap, but I had a little bit more control of that gap as the customer. And so that made me happy. So technology, there's so many cool things that we can do. Remind later. And so look at technology that's out there. And if you got, this is literally no obligation or whatever. If you want to tap my brain and you're like, hey Kevin, like what tech is available that would help my customers? Chances are we've got a short list. I'm looking around the room. We don't do a lot in financial services and insurance, but there's a lot of other. We have exposure to a lot of technology through our jobs, and there's workflow management systems, and there's things that you can install in your business and configure one time that provide a better experience for your customers and make your life easier. And I'm happy to provide that information to you. And if I don't know something, I'll give you a great website where you can go check that stuff out. Customer service, think about Zappos. They don't do sales on shoes, or rarely. They did a Black Friday sale. But for the most part, Zappos does not discount their shoes. Yet they're one of the biggest shoe sellers in the United States. Why? Because their customer service is off the charts friendly. There used to be a time, and I don't know if you can do this anymore, but you could literally call them and talk to them for hours. Their customer service reps would not get off the phone. They are service-minded individuals. They have the autonomy. So Tony Hsieh, the founder, rest in peace, gave everybody the autonomy to do what's right. Treat the customer correct. Do whatever the heck you have to do obsessively to make our customers happy. Ship them, they promise 2-day shipping. A lot of times they'll show up the next day. That used to be novel until Amazon started delivering stuff basically yesterday. Hey, you wanted something, we delivered it yesterday. But for the most part, like when they first launched their business, they were the most customer-centric e-commerce company on the planet. And literally like above and beyond the Call of Duty, above and beyond what they're getting paid for, it was awesome, and it still is awesome. So they didn't mess with the price lever, they messed with the service lever. They said, hey, we're not going to play a discount game. These shoes don't sell, we'll ship them off to DSW and they can discount them. That's fine. We're going to play the service game. And when you can win on something like service, like we all have that in our DNA, you just got to care and put it forward. Put a plan together if you've got an organization. If you're not the person who's in charge of leading service, figure it out. Provide that exemplary service. Southwest, they're my favorite airline. I love them. They're predictable. In addition to being economical, fast, flying commercial sucks. All airplane. I don't care if you get, whatever it is, business class in Delta, it still is, you need a can opener to get out of your seat. Unless you're flying first class, flying sucks. So what Southwest has done is they said, hey, we recognize this. It's not fun for anybody. We don't need all the frills. We just need to be predictable. We need to be fast. We need to be friendly. Those are our differentiators. Plus they had some fuel and simplified their fleet and did some other things that allowed them to do those things. The reason that you only see them fly 737s is so they can turn the planes that fast. So that they can be known as the airline that has a heart in their logo in an industry that nobody really enjoys. And that's how Southwest is done. Smiles. Flight attendants are generally pretty happy. Goes a long, long way. So why am I so passionate about this? And you can kind of see, like, this is one of my topics that I really, really like talking to people about. There's just so much upside, there's like zero downside. And how many times can you do something in your business that you know is going to be effective, and there's like zero risk? I mean, the only risk that you might have is you might try something that may not work. I'd rather try and it not work, and at least find out, than just keep doing what I've been doing. We did that this year. We built a sister brand, and I pulled the plug on it after spending a lot of money trying to build it. It hurts, but at least we tried, and we knew, right? So, differentiation can help you get to where you want to go faster. I think all of us would like to get more of whatever it is. More donations, more revenue, more customers, whatever that looks like to you. We're wired that way. We want more. So it can help you get there quicker. Also helps reduce your risk for your customers. Whether you're providing a more predictable experience, you're providing things at a different price point, you're structuring your pricing different, all of these things you should probably be doing with your customer in mind. Okay? So think about that. I don't really care about that stuff. Say no to bad ideas. That's a good one. When you have significant points of differentiation, what you're really doing is you're figuring out who the heck you are as an organization. And that helps you keep the blinders on, because I don't know about you guys, but I get some entrepreneur OCD sometimes, and I start looking outside. I'm like, hey, here's some cool things we could do. And it's like, okay, I'm going to stay in my lane. I know what my lane is. We've got the differentiators that make it so that it's meaningful to continue to stay in the lane. Even if business goes down, you know you're in the aggregate headed in the right direction. So it kind of helps you put some guide rails on your business so that you don't do things that are not congruent with your business or your brand. So differentiation really, really helps. Some other cool things. This is it. You can read all that. Draw a line in the sand and stand for something. So, who here has a chip on their shoulder in their business? Raise your hands high. Okay? Nobody else does. Why'd you start your business? Why aren't you with Remax? Or Century 21 or Reese Nichols or anybody else?
Well, I was.
You were, okay? So here comes your chip. Go. What was wrong with them?
I didn't like the corporate.
So there you go. There you go. You got a chip on your shoulder. Most of us have a powerful why, whether we're entrepreneurs, whether we're employees of small businesses. We all have something that caused us to say, this is us. This is what we stand for. We're not going to go over that line because that's a violation of our integrity, our morals, our values, whatever it is. And I believe that having a chip on your shoulder is a differentiator. It's not something, sometimes you'll talk about it, and sometimes it's just the fire in your belly. Sometimes it's like here's why we're doing this, right? And sometimes you're like, hey, there's a problem in my industry and we're fixing it, and here's why we're doing this. It really doesn't matter whether you publicly proclaim it or not. It really matters is if you have something. Because if you have something and you have like something deep in your belly, it really starts to help your business. I can't tell you how many times, I've wanted to throw in the towel multiple times over the past 6 years. There's just been times. It's like, man, owning a business, it'd be a lot easier to go get a job again, probably make a lot more money, have a predictable schedule. But it's the chip on the shoulder that really keeps me staying the course. So as you head into 2022, we're going to have a little conversation here, but as you head into 2022, I don't want you to go do all this stuff. That's dangerous. It's reckless. So I want you to be methodical. I'm going to give you an assignment. And I don't know how we could do the feedback on this. Matt, how can we get the assignments back? I think it'd be pretty cool. Most people probably want to keep these private. So keep this to yourself, because your differentiators are your business until they're not, and you start sharing them. I'm going to challenge you tonight before you go to bed, because this information is worthless without action. So I'm going to give you one action step. Write down 5 potential differentiators for your business. Take those in tomorrow. If you're in office of one, sit with them for a little bit. Look at them. Refine the list. When you go into 2022, hit one lever that you want to flip of things that we've talked about today. It could be community building, it could be your brand, it could be your pricing model, whatever. I want you to look at those differentiators. I want you to flip one lever at a time. I don't want you to go out and completely upend your business and change your entire value proposition, because then you'll never know what worked and what didn't work. You want to be kind of binary with your testing. So go pick one thing that you look at your differentiators, and the reason I want you to have your differentiators is because they will help guide what lever is appropriate for you to flip. Okay? And then flip one lever, run an experiment in Q1, lean on that differentiator. If it means you gotta build some stuff, build some stuff. It means you gotta talk differently about what you do that. It means you gotta work on your personal brand, do that. It means you gotta talk a little bit about what the chip on your shoulder is, do that. These things are all very, very achievable. But what you've gotta do, and this is, get out of your head. So head trash is a big thing as business owners. So if you find that you're running into a brick wall, find an objective third party, a friend, a mentor, somebody who will help you. I just went through that exercise with Diffactory. I was sitting on a beach in Florida, and I was feeling stuck on a business problem. I texted a buddy. I'm like, dude, can I pay you to come in and just listen to me for a day? Because I feel like I got to have all the answers, and I need somebody to call my BS. And he's like, you can't pay me, but yeah, I'll be there. And he helped me work through one single page punch list of things that need to be fixed, improved, 3 objectives. That's it. We still 2022 done with one single piece of paper. It sits on my desk, and I look at it every single day. Okay? So you got to get out of your head, and if you can't get out of your head, find a friend or an associate or somebody who is Switzerland, they're neutral, to help you. Because it's really easy to diagnose other people's problems. It's really, really hard to look objectively at your business problems and provide yourself with solid counsel. If you don't have that person, I'll be that person for you. Okay? And this is where I said, yeah, bring people from outside your business. I did this presentation in 2017. I changed one thing on it before I came and gave it, okay? So this stuff still rings true. I'm still doing this. If you find yourself lonely, find a friend, get in a tribe, kill all your assumptions, get out of your head. Cool. From an information out perspective, that's all I wanted to share with you today. I do want to know if any of this stuff was valuable to anybody. Okay, good talk. Well, if nothing else, then just drive by Diffactory. We do have a light lamp in our front window from A Christmas Story. And maybe that's value I could provide. Awesome. So if there's no other questions?
Questions?
No, they got none.
Come on.
And no value.
Questions.
No value or questions.
You were just that good.
I got one.
Kevin.
Yes.
We got a couple of them.
Nope. All right.
How do you, if you don't have one, how do you put a chip on your shoulder?
What's that?
If you don't have one,
Yes.
how do you put a chip on your shoulder?
I can't answer that question. That's a hard
Okay.
one. You think about, actually I can't answer that question. Think about what you were doing before you do now. What made you go do what you're doing now? Most of the time, if you're a business owner, you gotta have what's called an this moment. It's kind of like bottoming out as an alcoholic. You gotta have some sort of event where you're like, you know what? I've been comfortable long enough and I'm gonna go do this because I've had an event that's happened, and that event that happened could be kind of the chip on the shoulder. You didn't like corporate America. Nobody likes being a cog, things like that.
Yeah, the reason I brought it up is that's what had happened to me. I had somebody coming to me and they said, "You're so good at this. I wish I could do it." So I sat down and I put the program together to help other people become better speakers.
That's awesome.
So that's a chip on.
Yeah, that's a chip on your shoulder. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be a positive signal.
Right.
People are telling you stuff. You're like, man, I got this gift and the universe is telling me, but I haven't really listened. So that's a great example. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Chris, do you have your hand up or are you just itching your head?
Not really, but I was going to ask, can you think of some examples with Diffactory? Because one of your bullet points is you got to say no to bad ideas, and I think that's important. But I think it's also important to say no to good ideas, because you have to highlight and limit. You're talking about guardrails. There's a lot of good ideas that distract me on a weekly basis, I think.
Absolutely.
How do you, as an entrepreneur, communicate to me as a small firm owner who's trying to grow? What's your methodology for figuring out the good versus the best ideas to focus on? I have a grenade question.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. So there's no shortage of opportunities in the world. I've learned. Like if you just play the game, opportunities come to all of us. Those opportunities can be business opportunities, they can be family, personal, like there's just, the world, I believe, and I'm an optimist, you have to know, I approach this from very positive and very optimistic versus the opposite, like that's not how I roll. So I always believe that there's going to be an abundance of opportunities, which personally causes me to pass on a lot. I mean, there's a simple filter, I'll give it to you, it's either a hell yes or it's a no. That's not me. That's a gentleman by the name of Derek Sivers. He wrote a small book, but I remember highlighting that. It's like, if it doesn't get you super excited and you're like, oh my gosh, like if I don't do this, I'm going to probably regret it. Then it's probably a no. So that's a good filter. Yes,
There's
sir.
another way of looking at that. When I was in the insurance business years ago, I was doing really well, and a guy said, you could do better if you did this. And I didn't take that. And I kept my business going. If it's working for you, don't change it.
There you go. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs do that, myself included.
Yeah.
Things are going really, really well. You talk about self-sabotage, not to get too deep, but that's a thing. People talk about having an upper limit on how good they can feel, the amount that they're worth in terms of achievement and all of those things. And I definitely have an upper limiting problem. I'd be like, life's going really good. I'm going to throw something silly in there. I'm going to go start a new brand or whatever, take my eye off the ball, and it just happens. Which is also why it's important to have people around you to kind of hold you accountable.
Yeah. Well, I have my
peers,
own,
friends.
I have my own vocal coach.
Yeah.
Because you can't fix yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right. You're right. I have 2 coaches.
He listens to me, I listen to him, and we move on.
Yep. It's really hard. The headline is it's really hard to figure a lot of this stuff out yourself. You kind of need a team. Friends, family, coworkers, whoever. Yes, sir.
All right, so you started off the presentation with talking about how, who's your biggest competitor? You know, kind of looking around you, why are they your biggest competitor? And whenever you said that, I was like, oh, my biggest competitor. It's our own business, it's myself. I
Yeah.
don't even think about anybody else. Because you get to the idea of no bad ideas,
Mm-hmm.
well, you're just too scared to act on. So your biggest competitor is not external, it's internal.
Oh, a lot of times it is, right? That's where the head trash is, you know? You head trash, or it can be positive stuff, but like, that's why they put get out of your head there. Like I dealt with head trash as an entrepreneur, basically my entire career, but definitely over the past 12 months. And so like I have a coach in Nicaragua, Jose, who's helped me with the mental aspect of the game of business and life. And personal development plan, all that stuff. And it really helps distill all that stuff so that your thinking's correct. Because if you can't get it up right up here, it's going to be really hard to execute.